You're tuned in to the Dr. Kinney Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Erin Kinney, a naturopathic doctor and speaker dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of your body and guiding you back into balance. Let's get started. Hey, real quick, guys, before we start the episode, I want to share something that I'm really excited about. I know how hard it can be when your hormones feel out of balance, low energy, mood swings, and not feeling like yourself, which is why I created the supplement line Optimal Harmony. With natural science-backed ingredients, it's designed to support your hormones, stabilize your mood, and help you reclaim your energy and confidence, because when your hormones are balanced, everything feels easier. You deserve to feel amazing every day, so let Optimal Harmony line of supplements help you get there. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Kinney Show. This week I have Carrie Chojnowski back on the show. She is a certified gut health practitioner here at the Kinney Clinic, and she also hosts her own podcast, Thrive with Carrie. If you're interested, you can go check it out. But today we're going to have a really fun chat about perimenopause and gut health and how these two things are so intertwined, and it's really important if you are going through perimenopause to address your gut health. And there's a lot of the symptoms, and we'll get into this more, but a lot of the symptoms that we hear about, brain fog, fatigue, bloating, weight gain, yes, they can be from hormonal changes, but they can also be tied to things that are going on in the gut. And again, these things are very intertwined. It's not like it's all from the gut or it's all from hormones, but we just wanted to kind of like dive into a little bit of the nitty gritty stuff about gut health and how the importance of it. So thank you for being back on the show. Great to have
thanks
you
for
here.
having me. Excited to be here.
I think we were talking about this before we started recording. Carrie has a really cool personal story to share about this. So you want to dive into that before we get into things?
Yeah, sure. I'm 49 now. So when I was in my early 40s, I would say 40, 41, I was a hot mess. And I'm not going to get into all the details about that, but specifically my hormones were a wreck. I was having my cycle every 19 days for about 9 days. It was about 19 days, but it was long, heavy. I was extremely irritable. And had a lot of breast tenderness, night sweats, like everything that pointed to perimenopause. So I was like, I'm perimenopausal. And I could have been at that point, I guess, but because I was in the right age range, right? But as I started, and I did a lot of other things before addressing my gut health, but as I started to address my gut health, all of those symptoms went away. Yeah. So my cycles started to regulate, and since then, I have pretty much been in a 24 to 28 day window. My period lasts like 2 days. I don't have raging PMS. Like things have been great, you know, and I'm 49. So like, you know, I have some symptoms now that I'm like kind of getting there, but they're few and far between. And they're usually when I'm not
taking care of your gut health.
Taking care of my gut health, honestly. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect story to highlight. And we see that a lot in the patients that come here. They're in their sometimes even late 30s or mid 30s. They're like, I think I'm perimenopausal. Like I'm having hot flashes. I'm having like here and there. I'm having some night sweats. I'm having insomnia. Again, bloating, brain fog. Yeah. And sometimes their periods are out of whack. And you know, the hormones are usually, or like when your hormones are out of sync or your periods are dysfunctional, like longer, shorter cycles or heavy bleeds or erratic cycles, sometimes it is directly from your hormones, but sometimes it's actually from another thing that is affecting your hormones and then it's showing up in your periods, right? And we see this a lot with thyroid disorders. Like if your thyroid is low or if it's high, maybe you don't have the typical hypothyroid symptoms, but you might have menstrual irregularity.
Right.
So, and thyroid will affect the gut. I mean, you know, as we've talked about on the show many times, all of these things are like so intertwined, and it's so important to look at all of them. But I think our gut health gets disrupted by so many things that we do when we're stressed, when we're not eating well, when we're, you know, and you think about like, we joke about this a lot, like, you know, we leave the office and we're basically Uber drivers. We drive children around all day long.
All over the place.
I think there's that like meme that goes around that it's like, if you're looking for someone in their women in their late 30s and early 40s, you won't see them out anywhere because they're in their cars driving their children around. Yeah. Like, and which means we're in a rush when we're eating, right?
Always.
And we're maybe not eating the best food. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. I'm going to stop here and pick up this to-go thing. And maybe we're drinking too much caffeine because we're tired I feel like my daughter lately has like play practice like almost 10 o'clock. And it's like, I'm tired. I like to go to bed at 9 o'clock. So having to pick her up at 10 o'clock is really disrupting my sleep pattern. Right. So it does start to have an impact on that gut health. Yeah. And then, you know.
Well, I was thinking that when you were talking about, you know, like the 30-year-old, late, you know, 30s, early 40s, like I just envision these moms like popping goldfish in their mouth while they're running out the door, you know, eating off their kids' plates because that's what you do.
It's kid leftover eating.
Yes. And you're trying just to survive, really. You know, there's not much thriving going on in those younger years, unless you're really intentional about it. And, you know, and
it's
now
not easy to be really intentional. I just want to put that out there. If you're listening, you're like, oh my God, I try so hard, but I can't. It's okay. Like, it's really common.
And like, it's hard. Meal prepping is great, but it's sometimes, you know, if you've got like travel kids in like travel soccer, a lot of patients, and they're like, we don't get home till 10 o'clock on a Sunday. We're gone all weekend. And then we got to get up and start that week the next day.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have boys in travel baseball, and it's like,
so you do have to really like carve out time for it.
Yeah.
But let's start with some, and we've talked about this a lot in various different episodes, but start with some of the basics that are good for gut health, because that will carry over into the hormonal stuff.
Right. Well, I would say the number one thing, you can eat clean, you can eliminate things from your diet, you can, you know, examine labels all day long. But finding a way to manage your stress and really just to get out of fight or flight, which we're all in, you know, unknowingly, we're not running from a lion or anything, but our body doesn't know the difference between having to get to a game, having to, you know, get everybody fed. I mean, there's all this and sometimes unmanaged
just
stress.
The worry, like, I was experiencing that this morning. I have like such a busy, like, we're recording today, which is fun and everything, but then after I leave here, the amount of things I have to get done between now or then and 6 o'clock, and it's just like, I have like to drive kids all over the place, and I'm leaving to go to New York, and my brain was just like spinning out on all the things I have to do, and I was like, wait a second, why? I'm not stressed currently, but I'm now creating stress because I'm worried about the things later. So even that will put your system into a fight flight. So even if you're like relaxed and laying down the couch, but if you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week, your brain will go into that mode. Yeah.
And when you're in that mode, there's no blood flow to the digestive system. Everything's outward, right? Blood flow to the extremities. Your brain is all the oxygen is going to your brain, and everything's activated. But not digestion. Nothing in the digestive system. An easy way to think about it is, you know, the conveyor belt, which is from your mouth to the exit, and how the food moves through the system, and, you know, all these things happen, you know, nutrients are absorbed, food's breaking down, all of these things just stop. The conveyor belt has been put on pause, so everything else, you know, the extremities can be put into action. And so if you're eating when the conveyor belt is off,
guess what? It's not
stuck.
Going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And then when it gets turned on, then you have undigested food somewhere in the system that's trying to be processed. And so it just wreaks all this. And sometimes it can, go into reverse if things don't work very well, you know?
And you get reflux. And I mean, really common symptoms are reflux and the bloating. Bloating happens when stuff just kind of builds up and it's not moving through. But also, you mentioned, like, if stuff doesn't get broken down in the stomach, you're going to get these large molecules in the small intestine, which the bacteria they're not used to feeding on the larger molecules, and that causes them to go haywire. And then we get an overgrowth of bad bugs, and then you can get all this extra gas. Which can feel like you've gained a ton of weight, right? And we see this a ton. Patients come in, they're like, oh my God, I just feel like I've gained 5 pounds and out of nowhere. And it's not fat that they've gained, right? And because they'll be like, it's just here. Typically, it's like gut dysbiosis.
Gut dysbiosis, undigested matter. I mean, you can have up to like, 10 pounds of poop in your, you know, there's a lot of space in there. I mean,
which makes you feel really uncomfortable.
I used to feel 5 months pregnant all day long, all the time.
And think about that, what that does to your mood. Then your clothes are too tight, they don't fit, you feel cranky and irritable because you just don't feel like yourself. It doesn't feel good. And also, you know, when that conveyor belt, I love that analogy, when that conveyor belt is not moving, it's going to mess with your neurotransmitters, which is then going to affect brain chemistry.
Right. And that's what we hear a lot about in perimenopause, menopause, that anxiety increases. So your gut bacteria produces GABA, which helps regulate your anxiety. It produces serotonin, which helps you feel happy, and then dopamine, which gives you motivation to do the things that help you feel happy as well, you know, and then melatonin. So it also affects sleep. So I think a lot of the things that are related to perimenopause, menopause are gut related. So if we can keep the gut happy, we can also minimize those symptoms for sure. So
and then, you know, when we look at whenever hormone changes do occur in the body, whether that's a decrease in estrogen, a decrease in progesterone, which is typically it's more progesterone in that perimenopause time, that will also affect the gut flora. So there is, again, there's kind of like this chicken egg, like what's first, but you know, you can minimize so many of the hormone declining symptoms when you work on the gut health. And the other thing is when that conveyor belt stops, when digestion isn't occurring properly, you don't break down your estrogen as well. And so this is what I see in a lot of my patients, like late 30s, early 40s, if they're having lots of PMS and all these gut symptoms we've mentioned, their estrogen levels actually tend to be pretty high because they're not detoxing and their progesterone is low.
Right.
And so that's when we can see the raging PMS or the PMDD or the breast tenderness. Or I wonder if maybe that was what was going on in your case. Like the really heavy bleeds, typically that indicates like elevated estrogen. And again, estrogen gets broken down, like your gut microbiome helps to break down your estrogen. So if that is not working properly, you're going to see major hormonal imbalances.
Yeah. And I was extremely irregular at that point. I was either having bouts of diarrhea or constipation. So things were not moving well at all.
Yeah.
So to go back to what to do about that, you know, because but I tend to do that. So I have to bring myself back. But like to get out of that fight or flight and get out of that fight or flight mode, the opposite of that is actually rest and digest, properly named, right? Yep. This is where we need to be when we're eating. So right before you sit down to a meal, and I know we don't always sit down to a meal. I mean, I used to literally eat on the fly all the time, but when you have the opportunity to take some deep breaths, you know, I love box breathing. I always talk about box breathing only because for me, if I breathe in and breathe out, I hyperventilate. I don't know why. I need the pause. I'm not good at, for some reason, just breathing in and breathing out and regulating my system. I need the pause. But there are all these techniques that, you know, different ways of breathing that you can incorporate just a few minutes before you open your mouth and put the food in.
Yeah, I really like belly breathing because it really like you put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And a lot of us, and I know I've been in stages of life where I do this too, when we breathe in, we just have our chest move.
Yes.
And that's almost like more fight or flight breathing. You want to like breathe in and don't have your chest move, just have your, it's almost like you try to make a pregnant belly.
Yes.
Like, so you're actually telling the body to put oxygen and blood flow in the digestive tract. You do 5 or 10 deep belly breaths and that'll hack your system out of fight flight.
Totally.
And it puts blood flow there, which is what we want. That's like tells the body, hey, now's the time to digest.
Yes.
Now we want to relax.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great thing to do that before meals. And I love what you're saying. Like, and I always try to explain this to patients. Sometimes, like most of our stress, it's not like we're going to make that go away. Like, especially when you're in this parent, if you are a parent and you're driving kids around, you're not going to be like, sorry kids, I'm not driving you tonight. I mean, maybe you would, but like that's not something you're going to remove. So it's really less about removing stress, but more about adding in downtime. Yeah. And being really intentional about that. Like, hey, I'm going to make sure today I turn off my phone and read my book for 20 minutes, or I'm going to go sit outside and enjoy the sunlight, or I'm going to, you know, do my prayer practice, or I'm going to do a meditation. And this could look different for everybody, right? I think it's, you got to find the thing that makes you feel good. Right. Because when you feel good, usually that means you've come out of that like fight, flight, combative state.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what I can share. Like right now, I just went to a Joe Dispenza meditation retreat. So I've been meditating a lot and that feels really good. But I've gone through phases where like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle is the thing that like chills me out and feels really good. And it like keeps my brain active. Or I love to take walks or just sit. I love to be outside. So like being outside, and I love to read. So for me, like those are usually my like go-to. Oh, I'm feeling a little overstimulated. I'm going to turn everything off. I'm going to go lay in bed and read, or I'm going to go lay on the couch and read.
Yeah. That's been key for me, is turning everything off. You know, we're in this like consume culture, which is great. You know, we're on a podcast. Yeah. I have a podcast. Yeah. We're always consuming information. And I have to go through periods where I just don't listen to anything. I don't listen to anything. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, oh, it's so quiet in here. Should I be listening to something? And I'm like, no.
It's funny. We share this patient. I saw her yesterday, and she was talking about how you'd said, hey, like sometimes you need to not listen to music. Don't listen to a podcast. I know you want to be like doing something with your quote unquote downtime, like while you're cooking or while you're walking. But sometimes it is really nice for there to be no input to the brain.
Yeah. I mean, we have our phones by our plates. I mean,
we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, I do it all the time. But I try to remind myself, like, move it away. When I'm with my family, we don't have phones. But if I'm alone, sometimes I'm like, I should be doing something.
I think the
check email.
Phone is one of the, I struggle with that the most. And but I will find, like, if sometimes I feel like I'll leave it somewhere and then I won't have it for a day. And once you get through the immediate, like, where is it? It feels really good.
So good.
To be like, oh, I know. I'm not tethered to this thing and I'm going to actually get really into something else. But point here again is try to find something that you like to do that is relaxing to your body. And that's the key here. It needs to be really relaxing to the body. So that you want the blood flow to come back here. You want to get the body out of fight, flight. Yeah. And you might have to try out a few of these. And sometimes you might go through 3 months where you love meditation, then you might kind of get out of that. It might start to feel like a chore. As soon as the thing starts to feel like a chore, we don't want it to feel like that. It needs to feel, you need to look forward to it. And it might change every month or 3 months, and that's fine. It just means you need that intentional time of downtime. Yeah. And that will make such a big difference in your gut health.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it streamlines that, that production of those neurotransmitters. It streamlines the transmission from the gut to the brain, and it helps your thoughts actually impact your gut.
Yeah.
So if you slow them down and stop the chaos, that will help streamline how both are impacting each other.
Yeah, it's really funny. I was sitting next to this girl at the meditation retreat one of the days, and we were talking a little bit before some of the meditations, and she just was like, oh, I've been traveling, and she was sharing. She's like, I haven't gone to the bathroom in like 3 days, and I feel like I haven't been hungry, and I just feel super stressed. And the first meditation we did, her stomach started growling, and you could like, everyone around, and she was like, I'm so sorry. And we were like, oh, well, it activated your, her conveyor belt started moving from the 20-minute meditation that we did.
It's amazing.
So, if you struggle with constipation or diarrhea or IBS, like doing things that kind of calm the nervous system down really help the digestive tract just get back on track.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so slowing down,
Slow
taking
down.
some time and rest and digest is like number one most important
Number
thing.
one, because you can take the supplements, you can do all the things, but if you're in stress mode all day long, you're kind of fighting yourself.
And I've seen this a lot over the years where patients will come in and they're like, I need gut health supplements, and we'll talk about the lifestyle stuff, and they're like, well, I don't have time for that, and they'll take the supplements and they see a little bit of improvement, but really you have to incorporate that lifestyle change as well. Yeah. So all right, what's the next one?
Oh, geez.
Water, hydration.
Hydration, I would say drinking half your body weight in ounces of water at least daily is really, really helpful. That helps with flushing toxins through the system. It bulks, helps the stools kind of come together.
Yeah.
I would say definitely hydration. And eating adequate fiber. I think many of us, and that's food fiber. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of Metamucil and things like that. Personally, because they never worked for me. They actually made me more bloated, more gassy, more irritable.
Well, it's interesting, if you are taking those, you have to make sure your water intake is on point.
Well, exactly.
Because if you eat a bunch of fiber, and one other thing I just want to add in before we jump into the fiber piece is, so hydration is definitely mostly about drinking water, but then you also want to look at, are you taking any medications that are dehydrating you? So we were just having a conversation right before this. Antihistamines dehydrate you. Alcohol dehydrates you. A lot of like benzodiazepines dehydrate you. So there's a lot of medications that will actually, you might be drinking enough water, but if you're taking something that, or if you're drinking a lot of caffeine, you might actually be like not getting as much hydration as you need.
Right.
So, kind of doing an inventory like, hey, okay, I do drink my body weight in ounces, but I also drink 2 cups of coffee and I take an antihistamine. You might actually need to drink more water than you think.
Right.
And then we love to recommend electrolytes too, because that'll help keep the water inside the cell.
Right.
And so back to the fiber thing, if you are not properly hydrated and you take a fiber supplement, it might make you worse. It might make the symptoms worse. So
that's what it did to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have people in my life who take fiber supplements, and I keep trying to move them away from that because they continue to have bloating, gas. It's a lot of gas and bloating that I see with that.
Yeah.
So
food fiber.
So food fiber through vegetables. I mean, ideally through vegetables, diverse vegetables and fruits. They say you should have about 35 to 50 different types of fruits and veggies a week. Yeah. That's hard.
I know. I feel like I've been thinking about that a lot since you taught me that. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I'm getting all my things.
But it doesn't have to be like massive amounts. It can be like, get a mixed green package. You're going to, if
you do a salad a couple times a week and vary it up, you'll get there.
Yeah. And then, and try different things every single time. But
what other foods? Let's talk about some other foods that are like obviously vegetables. But what about chia seeds? Do you like chia seeds?
I love chia seeds. Yep. I love chia, hemp, flax, really great sources of fiber. Avocados have
that's right.
insoluble and soluble fiber. So both types of fiber.
The perfect food. And they're so good for hormone health. Mm-hmm. I love, like, they call this thing, like, I think it's like the signet, I can't remember. There's this term in nature where, like, foods that look like certain body parts are good for those certain, and avocados look like your ovaries. They're really good for ovarian health and thus for hormone health as well. And partially because of the different fibers they have, but they have all the good fats. Like eating an avocado a day is like an excellent thing to do for your health.
Yeah. The other food is kiwis. Okay, so kiwis with the skin on.
With the skin on?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Do you know her name? She's a gastroenterologist, Ivana. Oh gosh.
No.
I gotta look it up. I don't know my phone.
Okay.
Anyway, she's amazing.
Okay.
But she's on. We'll have to figure out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
But she did a reel one day about putting 2 whole kiwis with the skin on in a blender and drinking that every day. And I have used it with my clients.
Is it good?
Yeah, it tastes like a kiwi.
Yeah.
And I mean, the skin is hairy. So eating it is not as, I think, palatable as just chugging it, but it works. Like I have had people who are constipated for days, you know,
really? And just 2 kiwis.
you know, we're trying to use a magnesium supplement to kind of help them poop, and they're at like high doses. And I'm like, you know what? Let's
Nothing's
just pause
working.
everything and incorporate
Go
this.
back to food.
And like 2 days in, they're like, I pooped. It's so, and like, you know, it's so funny because like I literally get more excited about poop than I do about sex sometimes. Like seriously, it's like the best thing in the world when you're someone who hasn't pooped regularly in your life. It's like the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I just get really excited about that for my patients.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
really
2
cool. So
kiwis
2 kiwis and do that every day, or what's the?
I
Or
mean,
a couple
I
times
tell
a week?
them to start every other day, just kind of see how it feels. Because I mean, I feel like if it does work that well, you might, I don't know, get a little
the other
more
way?
on the other way if you do it too often. And you want diversity. So like
that's
you
true.
don't want to
eat the
build
same thing
a
every day.
sensitivity to it or anything like that. So it works.
That's a great
works.
little hack.
Yeah.
How about okra?
I don't know anything much
So
about okra.
I feel like I
do like okra,
Yeah,
but I don't.
it's got great soluble and insoluble fiber in
it?
there as
Okay,
well,
that's
and it's
good.
got like it's a very like mucilaginous type of
Yeah.
thing. A woman that I used to get colonics from was huge. She would be like, you need to eat okra like at least 2 times a week.
I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of a funny food. It's got those little weird seeds.
Yeah.
And, but if you put it in a soup or in a stew, or
I get pickled okra at the farmer's market every summer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but it's really good for you. So so there are all these natural foods that have such good fiber content.
Right. And the problem is that so many people's guts are in not the right
to digest
shape.
that.
They don't have the right bacteria to be able to digest a lot of those. And I would say if you are one of those people, you know, really starting to maybe take out any processed foods first and foremost, because that is kind of how we often get into that state where our gut is a little bit deficient in the bacteria that helps digest those carbohydrates and any fibers that we eat. So
and that's a really common thing. We see patients will be like, oh my God, I tried to eat this like whole food healthy diet and I felt way worse. Like, and that's just because their gut flora is not where it needs to be. So this is where like working with a provider, like someone like Carrie, who can really help you tease out like, okay, we need to do this step first and then we'll move here and then we'll move here. Because sometimes again, people are like, well, I tried to do all the things that were healthy, but my gut couldn't handle it and I got worse.
I mean, that's how I was. I was on a extremely restricted diet, a low FODMAP. I mean, I didn't eat onions, garlic, avocados, mangoes, nuts, seeds, lactose. I really didn't eat anything. And now I can eat all of it for the most part. So, but I had to heal my gut before I could reintroduce a lot of them. And I talk to a lot of people who are like, we just never cook with onions and garlic. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, you could actually get your body to be, because
Yeah.
usually onion and garlic sensitivity is you just don't have the bacteria that break it down.
Right. It's nucleosaccharides. It's a specific type of sugar. You just need the bacteria that digest those sugars effectively.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the first, piece of advice that we gave you is like getting the system to not spend its entire day in fight flight is like number one first step.
For sure. Yeah.
And that might take, just so you guys are listening, sometimes you might be like, oh my God, I don't want to be told that this is all from stress. And that's not really what we're saying. It's and you're not going to, we work with tons of patients whose stress levels are, I mean, you would not believe like the things that they've been through. And, they work 120 hours a week and have multiple kids and, stress levels, like, again, sometimes I'm like, wow, how are you even still functioning? Like, that's pretty amazing what your body's gone through. But again, it's not you have to remove all those stressors. We just have to carve out the downtime. And that will, I always tell patients, I'm like, when you're in a stress state, it actually makes your gut more acidic because there's not as much blood flow or oxygen there. So the flora that lives there, the ones that are supposed to live there, like a pH of around 7.4. Right, that's what a healthy pH of your body should be. If the pH even goes down like a tiny bit, become more acidic, like a 7.35, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's enough of a change where now those good guy flora are like, oh, this weather here sucks, I'm moving, and they leave, and then the bad guy flora grow. So the more time you can spend putting in the rest and digest, put in the oxygen, put in the blood flow there, you'll regulate the pH, and then those bad guy bugs are like, oh, I think they're like weather. They're like, oh, we don't like this weather, we're leaving, and then the good guy bugs can come back. So that's you want to change the terrain, right?
Yes.
And there are supplements and other things we can do, but if you keep in that stress state and the system stays acidic, it's really hard to supplement out of that.
Totally.
It's just hard to do.
Yeah.
And now supplements will help, if you make these lifestyle changes, they'll help the gut heal a little bit faster.
Yeah, I feel like they can be and are a catalyst to change. They can help. And they also, like if you're somebody who has this overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, you're often craving more sugar because that pathogenic bacteria loves sugar.
Yeah.
And so there are tools to help regulate your blood sugar and also,
or sometimes to get rid of the bad bacteria.
Yes,
right.
To get
sometimes
rid of that
the overgrowth
bacteria.
is so bad that maybe just spending time in parasympathetic is like, we got to actually go in and remove those players because they're like, we're not leaving.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
I had very dysregulated blood sugars. I had yeast overgrowth. I had all the things. And basically weeding, seeding, and feeding my gut got me to a place where I could reintroduce all those foods.
Yeah.
And then got me to a place where I had less anxiety and less
Then you could calm down, right?
And then, I could actually implement the stress reduction. Then I changed jobs because my job was really stressful. But I couldn't get there until I had something to help my gut start to change the terrain.
Yeah.
It's almost like I needed that.
Yeah, and sometimes again you got to do these things at
it's all
tandem.
piecemeal, right?
Yeah.
Over time, you just stack every new thing, every strategy on top of the other. Yeah.
All right, so nervous system. We talked about hydration. We talked about fiber.
Yeah, about 35 grams of fiber a day. Having adequate protein. Protein and healthy fats are building blocks to your hormones. And they really do help. Keep you satiated so that you don't snack on the junk so that your gut can function the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. And they'll keep blood sugar regulated. Blood sugar, when it's too high, particularly, will impact that pH and the flora that's thriving.
Yeah.
Particularly yeast. Blood sugar feeds yeast. And so yeast can, and we always have a tiny bit of yeast. It's normal to have yeast in your flow. It's a part of our normal bacteria. But if it gets out of whack and if you feed it too much sugar, the yeast will overgrow and then it causes lots of problems.
Yeah.
Yeast is no fun.
No.
And yeast, weirdly, a few years ago, had I wasn't having GI symptoms, but I was getting bad anxiety. That seems to be a trigger for me. That's a symptom that but the woman I was working with, my naturopath, was like, oh yeah, you've got a yeast overgrowth and it's affecting your neurochemistry. It's triggering histamine and doing all these things. And it was making my allergies worse. And
I mean, it can, other symptoms can be brain fog, low energy, sluggishness, skin issues are often indicative of some sort of yeast overgrowth, anxiety, depression even, a lot of things can be linked to that.
And then again, as we, have keep saying is all of these things that we're talking about in the gut will have an impact on your hormones. And if you're going through a period in your life where your hormones are already changing just because of the way women's hormones are, you're going to feel that even more, right? You're going to see even more. Because the thing is, we have patients that come in with symptoms like this, and they're in their early 20s, and they're not in perimenopause. Their hormones are pretty stable, but they have the hormone symptoms, but they're not thinking perimenopause because they're 22 years old, right? But so, again, it kind of just is it's very teaching as a practitioner, being like, oh, well, these symptoms, they could be perimenopause, but they're probably also linked to the gut stuff. So we need to tease that out and work on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had somebody who got diagnosed with a soy allergy, I would say, and she cut soy out. She's been about 2 weeks, and she's like, my anxiety is
so much better.
Half. Half of what it was. And she was in this chronic state of anxiety. She said no matter who I was with, no matter what I was doing, I was always chronically overwhelmed and anxious. I've had this impending doom almost, you know, and she's like, but she had chronic diarrhea, bloating, gas,
all these GI symptoms.
All these GI symptoms. So she came to me specifically saying, I know this is gut related. I know it is. And sure enough, when she cut out that major irritant, she is already seeing. She's like, it's not gone. And I still have GI issues. And we're working. We're doing a lot of other things, but that was for her the biggest issue. So there, the gut is so related to everything. Yeah. And we really...
Yeah, and that's a cool case to bring up because I think, clearly she knew... And
she's 27. She's not old.
And she's also a practitioner too, right? So she knows a lot of these things, and sometimes that's, the truth for us. I'll share... This has happened to me recently, I know a lot of this stuff. I was having these weird, I was waking up and getting horrible stomach pain, and I kept thinking am I having the norovirus? Pain, I was on the toilet, not sure if I was gonna have it come out of one end or the other, and it was happening it was happening every couple weeks. I was like, what is going on? And so I was like, I need to run some tests. I can't figure this out. I'm not quite sure. And turns out I have developed an allergy to beef. And I eat a lot of red meat because I'm type O and like that's like my superfood. But
Right.
somehow my system is not liking that right now.
Right.
And cut that out and immediately like stomach's been great.
That's amazing.
So just
Yeah.
highlights sometimes if you're doing all the things and you take really good care of your gut health, you might need to run some tests. Like
Yeah.
if you're like, and if you've done all the things and you still aren't seeing an improvement, testing can be really helpful.
Right.
And
Because
there's-
it is an ecosystem and it changes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
changes all the time.
It does, yeah.
And one traumatic event can impact your entire gut. You know, it doesn't
or
have to
a
be traumatic
sickness or
yeah.
COVID or the flu. I think mine developed. I had the flu really bad last year,
Mm-hmm.
and something I think about my immune system went into overdrive. I eat a lot of beef, so I think my body just started attacking it. I'm not entirely sure, but
Yeah.
but you know, I'd never had that before.
Right.
And you know, it's interesting. I think in my early 20s, I had an egg allergy and like a lot of other allergies, and I tested. Those are all gone now. I didn't even know. Like they're gone. That's better. So again,
So interesting. Yeah.
the things your body reacts to do change.
Yeah.
Right. So. So sometimes it is helpful to work with a provider. You guys know I say this all the time on the show. Like work with someone to help you kind of tease this out.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be long term. Like it doesn't have to be forever where
Yeah.
you can never eat eggs or you can
Yeah.
never, you know. Yeah, I mean, I had COVID. When I first had COVID, I had it really bad. Like,
Yeah.
I just kind of got... Anyway, it was long. I had a lot of different illnesses after that, and I developed all these food sensitivities.
yeah.
And that was when I was starting my coaching, and I was just like, I'm a fraud. I don't know anything. It was just like really messed with my psyche. But
yeah,
of course, my gut was a mess. So,
yeah.
yeah.
That
And
happened
then,
to my daughter too after she had COVID for the first time and she was really sick. She developed like IgE allergies to dairy, wheat, and eggs and was getting these
Really?
like, oh yeah, like asthma from eating those. And but you know, that was in 2021. We just retested her and everything's gone. She has an asthma sense. So you know, a major infection, COVID in particular, which makes your immune system go crazy,
yeah.
can trigger some sensitivities, which can then have an impact on your gut. And let's be honest, like it's funny, I feel like perimenopause rightfully has been like in the news. Like everyone's like talking about it. It's all over social media and it's definitely something that needs to be talked about. And same with menopause. I think there's, women get gaslit and dismissed. However, I think in the last 4 or 5 years, so many women are struggling with so many symptoms and hormones obviously take a play in that. But I do also think our immune systems and our nervous systems have taken such an insult.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
The stress levels have been unparalleled.
Well, and social media doesn't help any of that.
No,
So
and you
it's
get on
like-
there and you're like, oh God, do I have this? Do I have this? And, and I always try to be sensitive to, we're obviously giving out a ton of information here too, but, I think it is a tricky time to be a human because there is so much information available.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you're like, what do I do with all this information? So this is where, again, it can be helpful to have someone walk you through it, have someone take your case because all the information out there, not all of it's for you.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
And some things don't work,
Yeah, exactly.
One thing works for one person. And so that's why in my coaching practice, like we keep data all the time. And if something doesn't seem to be going in the direction we want it to, we shift.
Yeah.
Because again, not everybody's different and their bodies
not everyone
are,
has a soy allergy. Not
Right.
everyone has a beef allergy. So sometimes
Right.
it's important to feel like, okay, well, what are the things that are affecting you and how is this impacting your hormonal state or
Right.
how are your hormones impacting your gut? So, there's so many different players in our bodies and sometimes it can be tricky to do this work on yourself. I mean, I have shared this a lot on the show that I have a whole team of people that help me with my health. And I have all this knowledge. You'd think I'd be able to treat myself, but sometimes I try to, and it's really not the best. It's better to have someone else help you walk through that journey, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what else about?
And make you not feel crazy because I think often as women we think we're crazy.
Yes.
You
I
know.
think that's really true.
So, and we have a lot, we're not only managing children and households and trying to keep our marriages happy and everything, but we're also, a lot of us are taking care of our parents,
Yeah,
and I'm taking care of my parents from afar, but there's still a stress from that, and so we just have so much on our plates.
I think in that perimenopause, menopause time, most people are in the sandwich generation, right?
Yeah.
Caring for kids or pets or whatever, career, husband, and maybe aging parents or other family members. And so most women, stress levels are at their highest from age 40 to 60.
Yeah.
Like that is just the highest time. There's just, and I don't, this doesn't necessarily have to be bad stress, right? Like stress could be good and exciting stress. One of the things I'm like working on this book and I'm really trying to like hone in on this concept that sometimes events in our life are horrible and bad and that is stressful and we're very aware of that.
Yeah.
But sometimes we go through a phase where like life is really good and busy and it's fun. And like I've been writing this chapter about actually libido and sex drive, and because when we're really stressed, that will kill your libido. And I think I've shared on the podcast, like I got engaged last year. We're doing a blended family. We moved in. Everything has been, I'm the happiest I've ever been. But I now have 5 kids and I run this business. My business is growing and I have all these things, and there's a lot going on. And I got pneumonia in the fall. I've never had pneumonia. I'm like, you'd think I wouldn't get pneumonia, but I think my system was just so stressed, but from good stress.
Yes.
Right. And I was like enjoying it. And this always seems to be my problem. I'm like, I love it. Let's do more of this. Let's do more. And so my tendency is to like get rid of the downtime, because sometimes I like some of the things, but you just have to remember that the downtime is sacred. You have to have that. And in order to keep doing all the things you love, and here I am an expert on this, but I still get super stressed and burn myself out. And but and then I, in the chapter I'm writing about how I got sick, and then my sex drive just went like kaput. It was like gone. And here I'm like, wait, what's wrong? Like I love my partner so much. This is like the most amazing, and it's coming back. I really just had to chill out a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, they say the book The Body Keeps Score. Our body is constantly speaking to us, and if we don't listen, it's going to stop us in our tracks. And in ways that we don't necessarily want.
And sometimes when you build in that intentional down, rest, and digest time, you actually can listen to your body. Right? Like you can be like, oh, well, maybe those headaches that I've been getting are just my body wanted some more water or sleep, or doesn't necessarily mean. And that the episode, I put an episode a couple months ago, like just talking about sometimes we think our symptoms mean something really bad and terrible, but sometimes it's just our body trying to tell us, hey, I need more water, or I need more fiber, or I need more downtime. Stop running me ragged, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, and this is probably another tip I would say, is cutting out alcohol. In midlife, I just went through a whole, in October, I was working with the Sober Fit chick, and she was
Maureen's fantastic.
Yeah, she's been amazing. And she was like, do you want to be in my beta group? And I was like, sure. And I just did it really to help her with her content. But as I went through the program, I learned so much about how alcohol was affecting my body, particularly through my perimenopausal season. And I've probably had 3 glasses of wine in 6 months at this point. And I sleep so much better. My sleep is amazing. And my anxiety levels are so much less. And just my digestion is so much less. And I am not gaining weight. Literally over the holidays, I ate as much as I normally do. And I eat more carbs now. I actually, because I'm not having a glass of wine, I'm like, I'm going to have dessert. I'm going to have pasta. Stuff I would pretty much not allow myself to have. And it's so much easier to manage my weight without it. And
you feel better, right?
I feel so much better. And I love wine. I do. But I don't even want it anymore because I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to wake up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I want to sleep. I never thought I would be that person, honestly, because I just grew up in a household that's what you did, and we just had a glass of wine. You didn't have to get drunk, but we just loved to. That's our how we socialized, and how my entire community socialized, and how my friends. But it's been respected, nobody, and a lot. It's actually becoming way more popular now to have a mocktail, and. I just feel so much better without it. So I would say if you are someone in, perimenopause, menopausal times, and you're still struggling with sleep and you're feeling anxious, try it. Let's try to cut it out.
Got to give it a month.
Because it definitely, at least
a month.
I will say.
You needed longer.
I didn't notice the impact on my sleep until
3 months?
January. Yeah,
so
probably January.
Yeah.
And I cut it out at the beginning of October.
Got it.
And so, how your watch, I my Fitbit was saying I was a giraffe sleeper. That was my profile. I don't know how giraffes sleep, but I envision them sleeping standing up and in short spurts. Don't know if that's true, but that's kind of what it said. It was you sleep in short spurts.
Yeah, you're not getting good, deep restorative sleep.
I'm a bear.
Oh.
I'm a bear sleeper
That's
now.
probably a good hibernation sleep.
Yes, a solid,
cool.
I get into REM, I get into deep sleep. And my scores went from, I would say I was averaging probably 72, 73. I'm 87 to 90 most nights. That's a huge jump. Huge jump.
Well, I mean, alcohol, one, is a central nervous system depressant, right? So yes, we feel good when we drink it, but it is gonna, and then when it rebounds, you get anxiety. And it also, while you're drinking, it lowers your blood sugar, which is typically why we crave food after we drink, because your sugar goes low, and then you're like, I want to eat everything. But then what you'll see is blood sugar dysregulation for the next 24 hours. So it does that. It also I mean, alcohol is great, but it is poison,
Yes.
right? So it
Yeah.
gets into the digestive tract. It's going to piss off your liver. It is going to affect the gut flora. So it does have a major impact on digestion and
Right.
on brain chemistry. And honestly, a lot of us use alcohol to relax, but then the next day our nervous system gets a little bit fried. It
Yes.
depletes your magnesium. It depletes all these things that kind of keeps the nervous system regulated. So you get more anxious. And then what do you want to do? You want to have another drink. And so we get kind of caught in these
Yeah.
like vicious cycles. And when our body is going through a time of major hormonal change, having that in your system, and it may not even have to be every day. Like I have patients that are like, oh, I only drink on the weekends.
Right.
And, you know, I think in the episode that Maureen was on, she talked a lot about her story. She was like, well, I didn't drink during the week. I was super
Yeah.
healthy, but then
Yeah.
I would binge drink on the weekends.
Right.
And patients would be like, oh, I don't drink for 5 days during the week. It's definitely not the alcohol because I feel the same. Well, guess what? It takes a couple weeks for that to fully get out of your system.
Yeah.
So that's why if you're gonna see, hey, is alcohol impacting my system in a negative way, you really do have to cut it out for. I would say I usually tell patients a minimum of a month, but again, for the sleep thing, you might want to give it a little bit longer.
Right. Well, I think the long-term effects, like you'll
Yes.
see, much more clarity.
Oh, yeah.
Way
Brain fog will
lower.
lift.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
your emotions are going to be way more regulated. Your sleep's going to be better. Your motivation. Like I used to be like, oh, I'm going to exercise tomorrow. But then if I'd have a glass of wine at night, then
Yeah.
the next morning I'd be like, snooze, whatever. And then
Yeah.
I would kind of beat myself up for not
Yeah.
working out. So, and it was like, I mostly just had like Friday, Saturday nights.
Yeah.
But still.
But it still has an
It
impact.
still
yeah.
impacted me a lot.
Yeah.
And I encourage women to try it.
Yeah.
It is hard initially because it's with that one drug or that one thing
Yeah.
that everybody's like, come on, why aren't you gonna have a
Yeah.
drink?
But you know what's kind of cool, I think, in the landscape today is that a lot of people are thinking
Yeah.
about this. So
Yeah.
it might, like, if you're like, oh, I don't know if it would be cool, my friend group, text them, be like, hey, let's do this together.
Yeah.
Let's have fun. We'll
Yeah.
go out, we'll get mocktails, or we'll
Right.
do sober fun activities, and we can wake up the next morning and feel good. I mean, that's the thing
Yeah.
that's great is when you don't drink, when you go out, the next day, you feel
You
great.
feel great.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Like we went on a cruise recently and I didn't have anything on the whole cruise.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome to wake up
Awesome.
in the morning, and I still slept in,
Yeah.
but I was like, yeah, let's go,
Yeah.
every day. And I would be, a couple times we were on the beach and I just got a non-alcoholic
Yeah.
beer. Like, it felt like a beer.
Oh yeah, and there's really cool options for non-alcoholic drinks now. So
Yeah.
I think it is an easier time to try something that it may have been
Right.
5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah. And it is one of those things like, when you have an irritable gut, like I have IBS, I grew up with IBS, I was always like gassy, bloated, things like that. You can modify your food and kind of manage those symptoms. I didn't realize how much
Alcohol was
the
impacting
alcohol
that.
was
Yeah.
actually impacting that. I thought, because I would have a glass of wine and go out to dinner, so I attributed it to my dinner,
Yeah,
not my alcohol. Yeah. And now I go out to dinner
and you're fine.
and I'm fine.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
really
eat the bread, I can eat the dessert, I can eat the
Yeah.
risotto. I had
Yeah.
risotto the other night. I never would have had risotto. I always blame dairy.
Yeah.
It was dairy. I
Yeah.
had risotto.
Oh, interesting.
And I
mean,
didn't feel gross. And I was
yeah.
like, what the
So
heck?
just another thing to
So,
investigate, right?
yeah.
And the other thing, and we talked about this earlier, like alcohol majorly dehydrates you too.
Yeah.
So there's that impact, right? It's going to dehydrate you, and it's going to, affect the gut flora and affect like your ability to have a regular bowel movement, and then that's going to affect your hormones and
And your mood. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had patients before that, suffering really bad from like they wake up at 3 a.m. and have like night sweats and they think it's perimenopause, but turns out like they cut out wine and that all goes away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so again, and this might be something, and this can be a touchy subject, right? Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, well, it's not the alcohol, right? Because you don't want to think that you maybe have a problem. And we're not,
Saying that.
saying
Yeah.
that, but you could be, I mean, I drink maybe once or twice a month and I never feel good after.
No,
Like, I mean, I
yeah.
enjoy a glass of wine, I enjoy a drink, but my system doesn't like it.
Right.
And,
Right.
But I sometimes I'm like, oh, do I have a problem because I can't drink, I don't feel well. But it can be a tricky subject, and if you're listening to this, is this kind of triggering you? Just be curious about it, right?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
or you can go check out Maureen, who we've mentioned a couple times.
Yeah.
Her name is the Sober Fit Chick, and she's been on the show. She also has her own podcast, and she brings on some really interesting guests. And it's just, and I love her take on it. She's like, just be curious. Like you don't
Just
have
be
to judge
curious.
yourself. You don't
Yeah.
have to, just be curious about it. Hey, is this something that could help me? And I've had patients cut it out for 3 months and they're like, I don't feel any different. I don't think it's the alcohol, and then that's fine. But you
Yeah.
ruled it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and everybody is different, so it's just another thing to explore if you're really
Right.
not feeling good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly if your sleep is disrupted or if you continue to have GI issues or
Yeah.
all the hormonal stuff. I mean,
Yeah. Or the mental stuff too.
Yeah.
Right? Like the mental emotional things. It's a
All
lot.
of
It can
it.
affect
Yeah.
a lot of different symptoms. So, as you can see from this conversation, gut health, is really important to address. And I know we've talked about this before, but really important to address while you're in perimenopause. Such an important thing to look at.
Yeah.
And so we've given you some tips. Try these on your own. If you don't feel like you get the changes, or you try to add more fiber and your system doesn't like it, then it might be worth pursuing, working with someone, right?
Right.
And you want someone who really understands gut health. So a naturopathic doctor, some of the functional doctors, or someone who is specializes in gut health. There are tons of cool testing you can run. Like Carrie runs this cool biome effects test where it actually measures the different flora that's there. So we can then have a really, we can then tailor your treatment plan. Guess what? You've got an overgrowth of these 3 things. We're going to kill those, and you need this. And
well, it also tells us what it's doing. What they're doing with the food that you're eating, and
what the bacteria are doing.
What the problem is. Is it producing too much hydrogen sulfide that causes the stinky gas and the bloating? Usually we can kind of have an idea based on symptoms, but it's very interesting to see in a report what exactly do we need to address. There's no GABA being produced by this gut. We need to help this person and support them so that they are not, anxiety is one of those things. It's I see it time and time again in the stool test where there's no GABA, and these people are all typically usually pretty anxious, and so we need to help support the GABA producers. There's GABA producers. They all have a job. It's like a community.
I love your analogy of the community. You want to share that right now just again?
So your gut is, again, trillions and trillions of bacteria that live in your gut. And you think about that, if you're in a community, you need every occupation, right? You can't just have doctors and bank workers. You need someone who does everything.
And teachers and bus drivers and taxi drivers and
for the community to function smoothly. And your gut is exactly like that. The ones that produce the hormones, balance your blood sugars, balance your heart rate, help
with digestion,
break down carbs, absorb nutrients. They all play a different role. And so we need that diverse, robust community living in, it's like a crazy ecosystem. They say there are more cells in the bacteria that live in your gut than there are cells of your body.
Which is so crazy.
I know, it's kind of creepy.
There are more of them than there are of us.
Yeah, and they drive everything. And so, this is a little bit of an aside, but when someone gets a really bad infection, sometimes they have to do something called a fecal transplant, which is basically they take your poop and replace it with somebody else's poop. And the donors of this poop, they evaluate them in their mental health, their emotional health, their diet, stress levels, any comorbidities, because that gets passed on into your stool. There's DNA, all the DNA in your gut, in your poop is going to be transferred. So they've seen in studies where a very thin, metabolically active rat became slow and sluggish because of the poop that was put into them. It's so gross. Wild. It's wild, but you can really certain issues like C. diff. Sometimes you need to do a stool transplant or a fecal transplant in order to save that person's life. And you want to be putting in good poop or good traits.
There's actually a supplement company, and I had the woman who started the company on the show maybe a year and a half ago. It's called Thana Biotic, and they have figured out a way they have a whole donor system, and you can take it in a capsule. So you literally can take poop in a capsule. But we use it a lot for Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. When the gut flora is really, really dysregulated and we're not able to get the momentum or the movement to kind of shift things, it's an amazing treatment. It literally changes your entire microbiome. Which is really cool.
Can change your person. It can change everything, really. But as long as you're getting
getting the good stuff. You got to make sure you're getting the good stuff. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Why did I go on that tangent? But it is.
I don't know. Cool. We were talking about the biome effects test and just the things that you can get from that. So there's really cool testing that we can do that can help really inform again the specifics of your treatment plan. So So that was kind of the point I was going on. If you're struggling and you feel like you've done a lot of the basics and you are not seeing results, reach out, find someone that can help you. If you're interested in working with Carrie, she's here at the Kinney Clinic. You can go on our website and book a call with her, and she can kind of chat with you through your case. And I think it's really helpful to get support. And in that patient we shared about earlier with a soy allergy, how she would have never known she had a soy allergy.
Idea. No, and she was consuming soy every single day.
Yeah, because soy's in a lot of different things.
And
she wasn't getting a full-on anaphylactic. And here's the thing. Sometimes you can have a sensitivity or even a mild allergy, and you don't get a full anaphylactic response. You get a mild thing. And we see this a lot. I see people with mild anaphylactic dairy responses. They eat dairy, they don't get hives and throat closing. They get stomach pain and headaches and
brain fog,
rashes or brain fog, and sometimes it doesn't come on right away. So sometimes testing can really help inform us, because it is often hard to know. Like you'd be like, well, I ate these 3 things, and then 4 hours later I felt XYZ, but I don't think that was the food. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it's my hormones, right?
Right.
So again, the testing can really help you figure that out.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys loved this episode and that you learned something. If you have questions or again want to contact us, you can schedule a free consult with Carrie. You can go to our website. We have a ton of information there. You can go listen to Carrie's podcast. She's got tons and tons of episodes that dive into this topic as well.
Yeah, it's
so
called Thrive with Carrie.
Yes,
so,
tons of information for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to connect with me on social media to find more helpful tips and information. You can find me at Dr. Kinney on all of the platforms. And please be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and/or a review. This helps grow the show so more people have access to this knowledge that leads to empowered healing. Love and light, and see you next week.